Greetings and Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. I hope we are all doing well. Before we begin with Surah Al Baqarah, verse 124, I would just like to remind you that tomorrow is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, also known as the day of Arafat. It is the most holy and blessed day in the entire Islamic calendar. The reason for this is that authentic hadith from the Prophet that the Prophet said that Allah does not free any more human beings from hellfire than He does on this particular day. And He also said, and of course, as I mentioned, the Hajj is 3 days, 8, 9, and 10. On the 8th is going to Mina, in the night time going to Muzdalifah, on the night is going from Muzdalifah into Arafah. You spend the entire day at Arafah, and then you spend the daytime at Arafah, then you go back to say Mina, and on the 10th you fulfill the other acts of pilgrimage, that is stoning at the Jamra. That's indication of shaitan. It's not actually shaitan, he's not an idol. And then you proceed with the sacrifice and the cutting of hair, and then you open the ihram, then you go to Makkah, you go do a tawaf, you do a little umrah, and you come back to Mina in the Tashriq days, and you stay 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And yeah, that's pretty much the Hajj in a nutshell. And so in the day of Arafah, it's on the 9th, the Prophet said that Arafah is Hajj, meaning that if you don't attend Arafah, it's technically your Hajj is not counted. Meaning, if for example, for some if some excruciating circumstances occur to come into play, and your intention is pure, and however you still miss the 8th of you, for example, you don't go to Mina, you don't go to Muzdalifah on the 8th basically, but on the 9th somehow you get to Arafah, your Hajj is complete, you get the full reward. And Arafah is also the plane of land where Allah will gather us on the day of judgment. So better to get familiar with the place where we're going to stand. Inshallah, Allah will have mercy on us that day. But for example, if you go to give an exam, right? You're given advice that one day before the exam, familiarize yourself with the route to the exam center, and just go visit the exam center so you know what to expect, so you're not stressed about it, right? So it's a similar thing with Arafah. I mean, those who are there, our brothers and sisters, let's all pray that their Hajj is accepted, and may Allah, out of His bounty and His mercy, Allah can do anything. Let's ask Allah He give us the reward for the Hajj, even though we are not doing the Hajj. Allah is able to do all things. He will do it if you ask Him and you are sincere in your intention. And may Allah enable those who don't have financial resources to become ghani, to become self-sufficient, so they can take part in this beautiful rite of pilgrimage. And may Allah, make it easy for us. May Allah have mercy on Makkah and Medina. I'm not going to say the entire Saudi Arabia because the fitna there is real. I'm just talking about the Haramain, Medina and Makkah. May Allah preserve them. They're the holiest lands on planet Earth. May Allah preserve them. May Allah protect them from the fitna that's going on in the world. May Allah protect them from the internal warfare and the strife occurring between the Muslimin. It's absolutely ridiculous, but that's exactly what's happening. But this fitna happened many, many, many years ago, after the death of the Prophet, after the death of the 4 rightly guided caliphs in the caliphate of not in the caliphate rather, but in the dispute that occurred after the caliphate of Al Hassan ibn Ali, the, let's say, the 5th rightly guided caliph. And then entire fitna that happened between Muawiyah and Yazid and Al Hussein and Abdullah ibn Zubair, and the attacks on Medina and the attacks on Makkah later on by the tyrant kings. May Allah protect Al Medina, Al Makkah, and also Al Aqsa, and grant victory to those who are struggling and striving to protect the sanctity of the Holy Land in Jerusalem. And so those of us who are watching this video in time, please fast tomorrow. It's a very, 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 very good deal to have all your sins forgiven just for not eating and drinking for not even 12 hours. Like, think about it. It's the greatest deal of all time. So fast tomorrow and ask for forgiveness for me, for yourself, for your loved ones, and ask Allah for anything, He'll give it to you. Anyway, if you remember last episode, we spoke about detail about Abraham and his entire family. I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's dive in. Verse 124. And remember when his Lord tested Ibrahim with certain commandments and he fulfilled them all. Allah thereupon said, Verily I make you an Imam, a leader for mankind. Ibrahim replied, saying, What about my offspring? Allah replied, saying, My covenant does not apply to the unjust. So this is, of course, Allah is saying that He tested Ibrahim with certain commandments, right? Starting from his childhood, right? The commandments were, of course, right? Some were explicit commandments given to him when he became a prophet, meaning he started receiving revelation and he saw the angel, spoke to the angel, etc. And also in his childhood, when he counseled his dad to adopt the straight path, when he spoke out to his people, why you worshipping idols. Then when I mentioned when he spoke up to their king, Nimrod, when he then went to the star worshippers and tried to guide them, then all of his escapade, he was asked to sacrifice his son, he did that. All of the commands he fulfilled. Okay, thereafter Allah said, I make you an Imam for mankind. He was not born like that. He struggled, strived, fulfilled all of Allah's commands, and as a result he became the Imam for mankind. And what's the evidence for this? Christians, Jews, Muslims hate each other, but all of us love Abraham. We agree on one thing, we agree Abraham was a great man, right? That's all of us, we can agree on that. And Ibrahim is very smart also, and very wise. Every time Allah granted him a blessing, whatever he did, his reply was, What about my offspring and my progeny? Meaning he was always worried that sure, Allah made him a righteous man, chose him and guided him, but he also wanted the same for his progeny. Think about us now. Think about us and our priorities. We want that we make the most money so we can have a lot of money on our hands, so we can send our children to the best schooling system. We can get them the best upbringing, best schooling, best housing, best opportunity, so then they can leave their home country. And everybody, they love to go to a foreign country where their ideology and belief system is altered by absolute godlessness and absolute materialism, capitalism, liberalism, and to literally make them like Westerners, right? That's literally what we do. And look at what Ibrahim is thinking. He's not saying, okay, oh Allah, give me money so I can build palaces. He's saying, I want my children to follow in my footsteps of being your righteous, obedient servant. And Allah is quite clearly saying that just because He chose Ibrahim and made him an Imam, that does not mean that by default all of His children also become righteous, pious people. Meaning everybody has to earn their share of guidance and share of mercy. Even Ibrahim the Great, even he won't have this leeway of just because Ibrahim is Ibrahim's progeny, they are rightly guided. However, Allah did actually make it such that Ibrahim's progeny, Allah has already mentioned this, it will come in Surah Al-Imran, that Allah chose Ibrahim, and all of the prophets, all of the books or divine books have come in Ibrahim's lineage, Ibrahim's offspring. But of course, it's not that, for example, like generations down the line, like Ibrahim as immediate 5 descendants were absolutely almost the greatest people to ever walk the earth. Okay, Ibrahim, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. After that, okay, sure, from every family of Ibrahim, I'm sure that there has to be one or two who are not like him. That's why Allah has said this. Well, let's read the commentary on this verse. It's quite a few lines. The commentary says, Ibrahim bore his trials and obeyed the divine commandments with complete submission and fortitude, and was therefore found fit to be a spiritual leader of mankind. All prophets after him, in particular those who were descended from him, would accept the spiritual leadership of Ibrahim. The fulfillment of this promise can be seen as a historical fact, since the three major religions of mankind, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, acknowledge him as a spiritual leader and believe in his prophethood. Bani Israel were proud of being descendants of Ibrahim and claimed spiritual eminence on account of the promise made by Allah to Ibrahim. In fact, Ibrahim had two sons, as we mentioned, Ismail and Ishaq. Bani Israel conveniently chose to ignore the line of Ismail, since they themselves were descendants of Isaac, Ishaq. With the passage of time, they had come to believe that prophethood was exclusive to their branch, and since all the prophets known to them, with the exception of Muhammad, were raised from Bani Israel, they believed themselves to be the sole repository of the promises made by Allah to Ibrahim. This belief is being refuted here. They are told that the promise to Ibrahim was confined to the righteous among his offspring, and because of their wrongdoing, the Bani Israel were no longer fit to be the spiritual leaders of mankind. They should now obey the Holy Prophet Muhammad, upon whom the mantle had now fallen. Moving on with the Quran, verse 125. And remember when we made the house a resort for mankind and a sanctuary, saying, take for the place of prayer the station of Ibrahim. And we imposed a duty upon Ibrahim and Ismail, saying, purify my house for those who go around, aka do tawaf, those who seclude themselves there, aka do itikaf, and those who bow and prostrate themselves in prayer. So Allah is saying that the house is referring to the Kaaba at Makkah. There's no doubt about this, okay? So Allah is saying, and remember when we made the house a resort and a sanctuary for mankind. He's not saying only Muslims, okay? He's saying a sanctuary for all mankind. A resort, by definition, a resort is somewhere where a person goes, like seek like refuge, like hospitality. That's what a resort is, right? When you go to resorts like in Thailand or wherever, in Bali, wherever, a resort is what, right? It's somewhere where you can like de-stress, relax, you have comfort, you have room, you have like a place where you can like survive even though it's not your own home. And a sanctuary, what is the sanctuary, right? You go to animal sanctuaries, you go to bird sanctuaries. What do you go to a sanctuary for? To get peace, to get away from the world, to ponder, think, work on your mental health, spirituality, peace, meditation. That's what the Kaaba is for. Two purposes. It's a resort, meaning it's a place where everybody comes, everybody is welcome, and they will be taken care of. Allah has blessed the Makkah and of course the Haram especially with all sorts of sustenance, fruits, restaurants, drink of all sorts, everything, okay? And a sanctuary, right? You go there, you immediately feel the peace, okay? If you've been there, sure, the atmosphere is a bit electric. It's compared to Medina is very chill, very calm. You actually feel it in the air, just because the Prophet is buried there along with the companions and the Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet's family, and great people. Of course, in Makkah is no less than that, and Makkah is, of course, it's the house of Allah, so it's the most holy place in the world. But you can feel a spirituality, right? But anyway, look what Allah says, okay? As an honor to Ibrahim, who built the Kaaba, as we'll see, Allah says, commanding everybody who reads the Quran after Muhammad, of course, take for a place of prayer the station of Ibrahim, to honor him after doing the tawaf in the Umrah, the pilgrimage. The literally this is a right of command. You do tawaf around the Kaaba. Who built the Kaaba? Abraham. After the thing, you pray two units of prayer at the Maqam Ibrahim, once again honoring Ibrahim. After that, you do the Sa'i, which is the 7 rounds between the hillock of Al Safa and Al Marwa, honoring who? Hajra, Hagar, the wife of Abraham, and his son Ishmael. So literally the Umrah and the Hajj even is around Abraham, right? Literally around Abraham. Especially in the Hajj, on the 10th day, what do? We on the 10th day, yeah. In the morning when we wake up and when we go towards the Jamras, right? The Jamra at Aqaba, when you go and you stone those statues representing. This is actually representing when Abraham was considering, like he had those dreams regarding him sacrificing his son Ishmael. The devil came to him at certain land points and tried to like misguide him. No, Abraham, what's wrong with you? These are just weird dreams. It's just it's a sickness. You sleep it off. Don't act on this. It's your firstborn son. You waited 80 years to have a son. Don't act on your whims and fancies. But Abraham believed in himself. He believed that Allah would not ever misguide him. So regarding his son Ismail and the sacrifice, it was not direct commandment. It came indirectly through dreams. Allah was testing him. That will he trust that Allah will not lead astray a man who he has thus led far. So even his dreams were Allah testing him. That's why Abraham has such a high rank with Allah. The commandment to leave his son in the desert, when he initially went, that was a direct commandment, okay? But the commandment to sacrifice the son, it was not direct. It came in the form of dreams, and Allah wanted to test both Ibrahim and his son, how much faith they have in Allah, that Allah would not ever let them get false impressions. Like Allah would not let them get misguided, basically. If that makes any sense. So Allah is saying He imposed a duty upon Ibrahim and Ismail. What did He say to them? He said, "Purify my house for three kinds of individuals: those who go around the Kaaba doing tawaf, those who seclude themselves there, and those who bow and prostrate themselves in prayer." So even in this day and age, like you can only go close to the Kaaba when you're doing the Umrah. Otherwise, you have to go in the surroundings, the platforms. So even like at that time, even like 50 years back, when my parents were my age or your age, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but it is my age. They said that there were no restrictions in going near the Kaaba, whether you're doing Umrah or you're just there to hang out, whatever. So even this verse applies even now. Purify my house, Allah tells Abraham, for those who go around, those who are doing tawaf actively in Ihram, those who seclude themselves there. When I went, for example, I used to just go, sit in the mosque and chill and just think and ponder. And those who bow and prostrate themselves in prayer. Of course, there's a Masjid al-Haram, we have the lead imam, and there are there is formal salah, meaning the prayer happening 5 times a day, and people literally day and night are doing voluntary worship. Bowing and prostrating are two physical acts done in the formal salah for those of us who are not well versed with Islam as of yet. So yeah, let's read the commentary on this verse. The house of Allah is a gathering place for the multitude who perform the pilgrimage, the Hajj, and the lesser pilgrimage, the Umrah. The Kaaba and its surroundings have been held to be sacred through the ages, and no living creature can be harmed therein. That's why it's called Masjid al-Haram. Haram means restrictions. You can't uproot plants, vegetables, you can't cut trees, you can't kill animals. Of course, like you see like a fucking cobra over there or like a scorpion there, you absolutely smash that shit into bits, okay? But harmless creatures like cockroaches or anything which is not a direct threat to your life or other life, you can't harm them, okay? Even if you see a beautiful, you're starving, you're hungry as shit, and you see a beautiful deer. I mean, now you can't imagine these animals around the Kaaba because it's so developed. It's like hi-fi hotels, buildings, towers. At that time, it was the Kaaba, and around the Kaaba, it was like the desert and like the grassland. So like there were literally animals around the Kaaba at that time. So the commentary goes on to say, there is an outpouring of divine grace at the Kaaba which every pilgrim feels. And like Abraham basically stood on a stone when constructing the Kaaba. We'll talk about that. And like that stone pretty much like bears the imprint of his foot. And standing on this stone, he gave the first ever call for pilgrimage. And this stone is now covered in like a glass covering where you can see the footstep of Abraham, okay? And it's very close to the Kaaba. Initially, it was right next to the Kaaba, but as you know, the Kaaba has undergone multiple changes because there were series of floods. First, Muslim armies fought amongst each other and they burned the Kaaba. Think about how crazy that is. But I mean, that's happening across the globe right now. Muslims killing each other, so I don't think it's so hard to imagine, right? But so yeah, and then in the reign of Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph of Islam, he basically like to create more space around the Kaaba, he pulled he like had like the stone retracted a bit to give more space to the pilgrims around the Kaaba basically. And yeah, so as I mentioned there, like the pilgrim performs the formal but voluntary prayer, the 2 units after doing the tawaf, there as commanded in this verse. And the physical surroundings of the Kaaba should be kept clean, and also like your own inner state, your physical purity, like your mind should be free of like lust, desires, corruption, and you must of course abstain from like lying, cheating, backbiting, fighting, swearing, and like lustful acts, right, around the Kaaba. As far as called Masjid al-Haram, the mosque with restrictions, right? That's what it means. And I mean, every mosque has restrictions, don't get me wrong, but this has more intense restrictions. Like it's Masjid al-Haram, the sacred mosque, the mosque where you have to obey certain rules. Of course, I'm not saying that you can go to other mosques and do all these things also, but over here it's like express command basically. So a little brief. Ismail at this time when the Kaaba was built was like a teenager. Okay, so when Ibrahim and Ismail built the Kaaba together, and we'll see like this topic will come in a few verses repeated again basically, and it's actually coming up right ahead, but I'll just mention it here so I don't forget. So like what happened was what used to happen was Ismail used to go and get certain stones, and then Abraham would, like place the stones in particular direction, and then make that square shaped building, which is now the Kaaba. But of course, it's been refined now. It's probably been shortened or increased in length. It's been constructed many times. There have been edits. Okay, I'm not saying the Kaaba right now is the exact Kaaba built by Abraham, but the foundations are the exact same. It's been built upon, but the foundations are the same. It's been modified, edited, renovated, but was built by Abraham. If that makes any sense, right? Like a building, like an apartment building built in Chicago in like the 1900s, is still that building, but renovations have occurred. So technically, its foundations are back then, but it's renovated to suit the current needs. So what Ismail would do, he would bring a stone, and Abraham would, like start putting it. Eventually, a time came when, like Abraham had put enough stones, so like now, like he needed like an elevation to be able to reach the top, basically, right, on like higher heights. So Ismail bought this particular stone, a rock or a stone or a block or brick, whatever, and he kept it on Abraham's like under Abraham, and this happened miraculously. How Ismail would put the stone, Abraham would stand on that one stone, and Allah would cause that stone to levitate, and he would go and put it wherever the foundations, like the building blocks, wherever he needed to. And then to honor Abraham, Allah caused his footprint to be like imbued, like set forever into the stone. Okay, like it wasn't like clay that Abraham's foot made an imprint. Allah somehow caused that stone to have Abraham's footprint, and we can see the footprint now. It's actually like, it's a pretty big foot. Okay, it's like probably like a men's size 12 or 13 or 14 or whatever, indicating the average man of height average height of men at that time was significantly bigger than ours. That's why they lived longer. Everything about them they were stronger, richer, more brave, more fierce, everything better than what we are now. So so let's read the next verse. And remember when Ibrahim said, "My Lord, make this a secure land and provide its people with fruits, such of them as believe in Allah and the last day." Allah replied, saying, "As for him who disbelieves, I shall leave him to enjoy a while. Then I shall compel him to the punishment of the fire, and it's indeed an evil destination." So look at this. Ibrahim is very smart. Okay, for example, like we spoke about the first dua he made, the first prayer he made when he left his baby child and his, let's say, new wife in that desert. I mentioned how he didn't say anything, but then when he crossed like the sand dune, and of course inside he was like dying, right? Like this is his baby child who he really loves and he really waited a long time for, and his new wife, he feels bad that he's leaving them, almost a certain death, right? Leaving, like, would you, if anybody is a parent watching this, would you leave your child and your wife or your significant other in a desert where there's heat, where there's no water, there's no food, no shelter? No, you won't, right? But Abraham did it, and he was a champion. He didn't express his feelings to them because he might have become weak and then disobeyed Allah. But the second he was away from them, when they could no longer see him, he started praying to Allah. I mentioned this in the previous episodes. Like he prayed to Allah saying, "Ya Allah, I left my family here in this desert, so provide for them and incline the hearts of people towards them." So a similar dua he made when Ibrahim had built the Kaaba with Ismail. He says this, right? Allah, make this a secure land and provides people with fruits, such of them as believe in Allah and the last day. So he's saying, Allah, make this land secure, meaning peace, no internal warfare, no strife, make it a place where people are peaceful to each other, and provides people with fruits. So whenever Allah mentions in the Quran the word samarat, it means fruits. It means every edible sustenance. Okay, it could mean khajur, it could mean al-baik, it could mean McDonald's. Okay, it just means food. Okay. But he added a condition. He's asking Allah to make this secure and provide his people with fruits, those who believe in Allah in the last day. Allah replies saying, he doesn't say this directly, but let me read let me just reread this and then I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Allah says, "As for him who disbelieves, I shall leave him to enjoy a while, then I shall compel him to the punishment of the fire, an evil destination." Allah is saying to Abraham's dua that in this world, sustenance, money, wealth, financial security, all of these things, Allah gave to everybody, believer, disbeliever alike. It's a test, a punishment, a blessing, everything. So in this world, Allah does not pick and choose if you are a believer or disbeliever. There are many believers in this world who are, suffering across the globe from poverty, from, they don't have food, shelter, stuff like that. And many disbelievers who are living like kings, who are ruling the world, who are living in penthouses, who drive the best cars. So in this world, having financial goods and financial security is not an indication of Allah's blessing. And similarly, those who are poor is not an indication of Allah's wrath, right? In this world, Allah says, He gives exceedingly to whomsoever He wills, and He gives sparingly to whomsoever He wills. Allah has this this divine wisdom behind how He's given some people a lot of sustenance and wealth, and some people not so much. Okay, Allah knows why. My understanding is that it's a test, right? People who is given to a lot of money to, He wants to see whether they'll become extravagant, or whether they'll become selfish, or they want greedy and they want more and more, or are they willing to share their wealth with those who don't have it, right? If everybody was rich, where would the test be, right? The greatest act of worship is sacrificing your own needs, desires, and comforts, and spending on your fellow brethren and brothers, whether they are believers or not believers. Every other act of worship is very easy. It's not hard standing in prayer in an air-conditioned mosque, man. It's not hard at all. It's pretty freaking easy, okay? It's not hard calling out to Allah and praying to Him when you need something from Him, right? Like if you sit and you open your hands, or you don't even need to do that, and you just talk to Allah. It's not hard. But sacrificing your own comforts where you can have a great meal, as opposed to you compromising on that and splitting that with somebody else, this requires real sacrifice. So anyway, Allah replies to him saying that I will give fruit, secure land to even disbelievers, and I will lead them to enjoy in this world a while, but then in the hereafter there is nothing for them. For the disbelievers, in the hereafter there is absolutely nothing. So disbelievers in this day and age, Allah says also in the Quran, this narrative we'll talk about later. This is talking about certain people in the time of Moses, basically, how there was a very rich man, and he used to be very extravagant, very he used to like go out of his way to make people see his wealth. And some of the wise people went to him and said, okay, Allah has given you wealth, but there are better things in this world, which is number one, the guidance of Allah, the peace and the tranquility that come with being on the right path. So they counsel him saying, okay, use your money on yourself also, and then give sadaqah, spend on people also, and fear Allah in the hereafter. And he said, I don't believe in the hereafter, and even if there is a day of judgment, Allah has given me wealth in this world and given me respect in society and children and power, authority, influence, surely it's going to be the same in the hereafter. Allah is saying absolutely not. In this world, giving you a lot, giving you little, both are trial and test. But the hereafter is reserved for only those who believe in the hereafter. Okay, like for example, think about this. Okay, I hope I'm able to say it out the way it's in my mind, because it makes a lot of sense. But here, inshallah, we'll try. Okay, so think about this. Okay, there's one child who studies for an exam. Signs up for the exam, goes to the exam center, sits the exam. And then is hoping for a result. Basically, is looking forward to like a certification, like results, like board certifications or whatever you want to call it, O levels, A levels, SAT, whatever, that they can then use to obtain a better job or make money so they can live a comfortable life. Okay, so these people are those who believe that they have to study for the exam, sign up for it, write the exam, because they know it will come in handy, like it will make their future better. As opposed to that, there's somebody who does not study, who does not sign up for the exam, but they are then still expecting that they get that certification so they can also live a good life. Are they not fucking foolish, right? Just think about this. They have made no effort to prepare. They have made no effort to go and give the exam, and they're still expecting to be equally certified with the person who did all of those things. Same thing with the hereafter. Okay, for the hereafter, the believer in this world struggles, strives, does good deeds, prepares. You pray, you give your zakah, you are charitable, you go to your parents, you go to your neighbors, go to your communities, restrain yourself from the major sins, like murder, idol worship, intoxication, stuff like that. Intoxication is not a major sin. Being caught publicly drunk and intoxicated is a major sin, but those who do it in their households, it's better that you don't do it, but don't be depressed, don't be like put down by it. There is a way out, okay? There is a way out. But yeah, so I hope that analogy makes sense. It makes a lot of sense in my mind, but I know I'm not as eloquent as I think I am, or at least in my mind, the thoughts that I have in my mind. So I hope it makes sense. So let's read the commentary on this verse, and then we will call it quits. There's Yeah, there's three important verses coming up. I need at least like 10 minutes to talk about those. So let's just read the commentary and call it a night. So the commentary of this verse says, the prayer of Ibrahim at the time of the construction of the Kaaba was that there should be a settlement of believers around the house of Allah in an area of peace and security. And this is what happened ultimately, right? Look at the Kaaba now, right? Look at Makkah now. The security was always there, and since its conquest by the Holy Prophet, Makkah has been free of unbelievers. Ibrahim was told that while Allah grants material sustenance to believers and unbelievers alike in this world, it is His spiritual gifts that are reserved for those who prove themselves worthy of them. And then these spiritual gifts, of course, transform into paradise in the next world, right? So we'll continue with verse 127 next episode. Thank you for listening. I wish you guys a great day. Jazakallah khairun.